She slid the paper across the desk with a smirk, 70% cut or you're out. Everyone laughed, even my wife. In that moment, I became a joke to the people I once led. I asked for 48 hours. That night, I made one call. By morning, her empire started to bleed. And she had no idea it was me holding the knife. You ever feel your heartbeat in your teeth? Like a dull, echoing throb that settles in your jaw and drowns out everything else. That's exactly how it felt when Karina Caldwell slid that paper across the conference table. She didn't shove it. No, her fingers barely touched the edge, then snapped it into place like she was handing down a sentence from a courtroom bench. The heads of operations all turned together, like synchronized puppets. Their eyes locked on the printed demand lit up by the harsh office lights. A simple message: take the 70% pay cut, or I'll replace you with someone who will. That silence, it wasn't empty. It held. It pressed in until my lungs forgot how to pull in air. My pulse beat hard enough to rattle my molars, but I didn't move. Not even a blink. Her voice came next, clipped and cool, each word dropped like a stone. She didn't yell. She didn't need to. She delivered the line with the precision of someone who knew exactly how to break a person while keeping a smile. This wasn't about communication. It was performance. Her audience? Everyone in that room. Her message? She owned the stage. She owned them. And she thought she owned me. But none of them knew I was her husband. Not on paper. That part had always been intentional. She liked her power clean. Private domination. Public erasure. I'd spent years watching her rewrite the rules of our life, subtracting me from the spotlight, one decision at a time. And now she was doing it again, right in front of everyone. I kept my face blank, my body loose, though inside I was seething. No, more than that, I was splintering. My head ran back through the years. The nights we stayed up writing that first proposal, the rush when we closed our first round, the thrill of stealing kisses in the stairwell when no one was watching. Back then, we were a team, real partners. But now? Now I stood there like an afterthought. A relic. Just more proof of how far she'd come. How far she'd climbed over me. Her eyes landed on mine, calm, powerful, unbothered, and I answered in a voice I barely recognized. I'll need 24 hours to think it over. It came out measured, restrained. No tremble. Just enough control to hide the storm inside. The room watched me, silent again, waiting to see if I'd break. They had no idea who I used to be to her. What we used to build together. All they saw now was some executive on his way out. Just another name on a chopping block. But I was the man she dismantled in pieces. The one who carried her forward while she sharpened her edges. And standing there, staring into the silence that followed my words, I felt something in me crack. Not loudly, but deeply. Something irreversible. Something final. Her mouth curved, just slightly. Almost a smile. She rose, fixed the lines on her blazer, and said the words like they meant nothing. Meeting adjourned. Chairs slid. The room stirred. Coffee cups, briefcases, whispers. I didn't move. I watched them filter past me like I wasn't even there. Like I was part of the furniture. Their glances were brief, uncomfortable. But they cut deeper than anything spoken. I inhaled slowly. I packed my laptop and notepad like it was sacred ritual, each movement a quiet defiance. I may not have had the power anymore, but I still had control over how I stood up. And I stood up slow. Deliberate. Like a man not finished yet. The hallway outside felt colder than usual. The lights overhead glared down like they were watching. I closed my eyes for half a second and saw Noah, our 11-year-old, tucked in bed, peaceful and dreaming, completely unaware that his father had just been stripped bare in front of a crowd. There was rage, yes. But more than that, there was something heavier. A sense of betrayal that went deeper than the room we just left. A sorrow for the life I thought we were living. For the team I thought we still were. But that version of us? That door was shut. Locked. Maybe even bricked over. She'd made her choice. She chose her image. Her narrative. And she erased me from it. I punched the elevator button harder than I meant to. When the doors opened, I stepped inside, then paused. I couldn't go home. Not yet. Not with her waiting there like everything was normal. Like we still had something real. Instead, I ducked into the stairwell. The echo of my footsteps bounced off the concrete, each one louder than the last. I leaned against the wall. Cold. Solid. I reached for my phone, instinctively, but stopped. No. Not tonight. I had to breathe. I had to feel every second of this. Her voice replayed in my head. That look she gave me. That flicker of victory in her eyes. I'll find someone who will. Like I was just another name on her list. Disposable. Replaceable. But not anymore. The man who sat in that meeting wasn't broken. Not really. He didn't flinch. He didn't beg. He asked for time. Time she never gave anyone. And in doing that, something inside me lit up. It wasn't hope for us. It wasn't about getting her back. It was the spark of something else, freedom. A chance to start over. A way out. I stood up straight. I pushed off the wall. And I walked out of that stairwell like a man ready to walk away from the fire without looking back. The garage was dark, quiet. The air hit me like a wake-up call. Cold. Real. I inhaled deep. And for the first time in years, it tasted like freedom. She'd have her 48 hours. I'd give her that. But I'd use them too. I'd weigh her demand against my own worth. And tomorrow, when I walked back into that building, I wouldn't be the same man. Something had cracked. But what came out of that break was solid. Stronger. I wasn't part of her empire anymore. And I didn't need to be. I touched my teeth with my thumb, felt my pulse still beating there. It wasn't fear this time. It was purpose. I had 48 hours. And this time, I was choosing me. I used to cheer like it was my own when every time she owned the room. Whenever Tessa commanded a meeting, I felt proud. That was us, I thought. She took the spotlight, and I handled the grind, the quiet, unglamorous work that kept the company breathing. I made something out of nothing. Cold calls no one wanted to answer. Conferences no one wanted to attend. I brought in the contracts that kept salaries paid during the lean months. I built trust. I built loyalty. The board called it foundational. Funny how they never called me. I wasn't flashy. No magazine covers. No keynote speeches. No visionary posts going viral on LinkedIn. That stuff didn't matter to me. But it mattered to her. Tessa thrived on recognition, on titles and applause. I was fine staying in the background. She needed the stage. And somewhere along the line, she stopped seeing me as a partner. I became a background prop. Part of the scenery. Silent. Necessary. Invisible. We moved into that polished townhome in Rosegate once the big bonuses started rolling in. I remember the first night like it was sealed in glass. No one napping upstairs, Tessa glowing in her branded fleece, fresh off another big presentation. She slid her arms around me and whispered, "We're building something huge." I believed her. God help me, I did. Even as the cracks were already forming beneath our feet. She stopped asking about my day. Stopped waiting for dinner. Her schedule filled with strategy calls, her calendar slowly swallowing mine. The distance between us didn't come with a scream. It came with quiet replacements. Conversations faded. Touch vanished. At work, she stopped seeing me as her person. I became an asset. And then a liability. I should have said something. I should have fought for us. For myself. But I let it slide. I let her correct me in front of junior staff without a word. Let her leave me out of client calls, even ones I landed. I told myself she was stressed. That it was temporary. That she'd remember we were a team. That boardroom proved how wrong I was. When she slid that document across the table, demanding I take a 70% pay cut or step aside, it all came rushing back. Every compromise I made. Every quiet sacrifice buried under her empire. This wasn't a misstep. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It was exactly who she had become. And exactly who she expected me to be. Obedient. Silent. Replaceable. I drove home on instinct. No music. No thinking. Just hands locked on the wheel and the bitter taste of humiliation in my throat. The neighborhood looked too perfect, too manicured. It didn't match the chaos I carried inside. I sat in the driveway for a while, engine running, staring at the light spilling out from our living room window. Inside, Noah was on the carpet, building a Lego version of what looked like Silver's office. He looked up, beaming. "Mom said you were in a big meeting." He had no idea. He couldn't. That kind of innocence, it broke something in me deeper than her words. Tessa was in the kitchen, back turned, reheating something in the microwave. She didn't even glance my way. "Hey," she said, like we hadn't just had a public execution hours earlier. I wanted to scream, to demand why. But all I did was watch her. Watch the way she moved like nothing had shifted, like my world hadn't caved in. "You ambushed me today," I finally said. She paused for a heartbeat, then turned, arms crossed. It wasn't personal. It was strategy. "You did it in front of them," I said, quiet but sharp. "They're staff. Not family," she said. "They don't even know we're married. And do you think that makes it better?" She shrugged. "It's not about you." And that was it. That's when it finally sank in. It hadn't been about me for a long, long time. I'd been riding shotgun in a car she was steering off a cliff, and I'd been too loyal to jump. I walked upstairs, past Noah's art on the wall, past our wedding photo still hanging crooked. I stood in our bedroom and stared at everything we had built, everything she had quietly dismantled, not with one blow, but with 1,000 cuts. I didn't sleep that night. I watched the ceiling shift from gray to light. I felt it settle in me like stone. This wasn't about anger anymore. I was awake. By morning, I wasn't the man who once protected her brand behind the scenes. I was the man she forgot to fear. And I was done waiting for her to remember what we were. I was going to build something better. Without her, the scene kept playing in my head. Her voice, sharp, cold, surgical. The way the room turned to watch me shrink under it. Some looked sorry for me. Others looked relieved they weren't in the line of fire. The click of her pen. The pause after the threat. The silence. When I told her I needed 48 hours, I meant it. Now, sitting in my car, parked in the dark, I still had that time. But it wasn't hers anymore. It was mine. The porch light blinked like it couldn't decide whether to stay on. Shadows moved across the lawn, pacing like ghosts. I sat frozen, staring into my own reflection in the windshield. I didn't recognize the man looking back. Husband, father, employee, victim. No, not that last one. Not anymore. There was something else in me now. Something cleaner. Humiliation burns away the lies. It strips everything down. You stop defending what never defended you. You stop pretending. Eventually, I stepped inside. Quiet. Careful. Noah was asleep. His door cracked just enough to let his nightlight spill through. I peeked in. He had a drawing clutched in one hand, crayons scattered across his blanket. I stepped closer and gently slid the paper free. It was a family drawing. Noah in the middle, Tessa on one side, our old dog, gone 2 years now, on the other. Me? Just a smudge. A faint blur. Erased. Like I'd never been there. Maybe I missed too many dinners. Too many games. Maybe I made myself invisible. Or maybe I was erased by design. I carried the paper downstairs, into my office. The walls were still covered in client folders, old pitch decks, hand-sketched charts from when Silver Systems was just an idea. Just a handful of dreamers with too much caffeine and too little sleep. I'd built that arm from scratch. Won clients no one else could reach. Held relationships together like they were bridges built out of string. And now? Now I was being handed a 70% pay cut, like I hadn't kept the lights on for years. I gave loyalty like it was free, like I had an endless supply and no reason to ration it. I opened my laptop, and the company org chart was still pinned in the top tab, right where I left it earlier that day. Only now, beside my name, was a title I hadn't seen before, Special Consultant. It sounded harmless, but I knew what it was. Severance in disguise. I stared at it. Just stared. Then closed the tab. In its place, I opened a new one. Typed 4 words. Coordinate Systems. Career page. That name had haunted Silver's walls for years. Our biggest rival. Sharper branding. Bigger budgets. More noise. They tried to recruit me 3 separate times. Each time dangling the same bait. Better pay, shinier title, faster promotions. And every time, I turned them down. For loyalty. For principle. For Tessa. Never again. I skipped their public job listings and went straight to my contacts. I typed the name I hadn't thought of in a long time. Ryan Ortega. Floodgates opened. I remembered everything. Ryan had been a green intern on my team, wide-eyed, too eager, and terrible at reading a room. I coached him through it. Showed him how to pitch without sounding desperate. How to walk into a meeting and own it. He left for Coordinate Systems 5 years ago. We lost touch. Now, he was their VP of Strategic Growth. I hovered over message for a long second. Then I clicked. Ryan, long time. Hope you're well. I've got something important to discuss. Are you free this week for a quick talk? I hit send. Closed the tab. Sat in the dark. The reply came sooner than I expected. A single ping. I leaned forward. Aaron. Damn. I hoped this day would come. You free tomorrow morning? Early? I didn't hesitate. Name the place. We agreed on Rosegate Diner. 7:35 a.m. That was classic Ryan. Up with the sun, always ready. I sat back in my chair and let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. My hands were buzzing. Not from panic. From something else. Possibility. Not some abstract someday. This was real. Right now. Like someone had finally cracked open a window in a room I'd been suffocating in for years. Down the hall, I heard Tessa in the kitchen, probably making her usual silent smoothie or prepping those overnight oats. Everything she did came with that same quiet confidence, like she had never been questioned, never been doubted. I didn't say a word, didn't go to her. I shut my laptop and went upstairs. Past the framed memories on the wall, vacations, speeches, Noah's first birthday. A museum of curated moments. None of them felt real anymore. In our bedroom, Tessa was already under the covers, a book open in her lap. She looked up briefly, then turned back to her page. Like I was just another piece of background furniture. I changed without speaking, slipped into bed without touching her, stared at the ceiling while my chest thudded quietly against my ribs. She didn't ask about the meeting. She never did. She stopped asking a long time ago. But tomorrow, I'd sit down with a man she once mocked as junior talent. A guy I taught not just how to pitch, but how to believe in himself. And this time, I'd be the one doing the listening. Not because I was desperate. Because I was ready. I had given Silver Systems everything. I gave her everything. And now, for once, I was going to give something to myself. On the other side of this? A new chapter. One I'd walk into with my eyes wide open. The Rose Gate Diner hadn't changed. Same cracked booths. Same flickering neon buzz above the register. Same waitress, Bonnie, moving like she owned the place long before the owner ever did. People came here to blend in, to disappear into routine. But I wasn't here for routine. I was here to end something, and start something else. Ryan was already at the table when I walked in, smiling like he'd just won the jackpot. He stood up and gave me a quick hug. "Aaron," he said, slapping my back. "Man, I've imagined this moment more times than I can admit out loud." I laughed, slipping into the seat across from him. "I see Paige didn't scrub the charm out of you," I said. "She just polished it," he shot back, grinning. Then he waved to Bonnie without looking at the menu. "Coffee for both. Black, right? Some things never change." I leaned back and gave him a once-over. He looked solid, his jaw more defined, suit tighter, voice deeper. Like someone who finally belonged in the rooms he used to sneak into. But in his eyes, I could still see it, that respect. Like he was still talking to the guy who once helped him climb out of his own shadow. Maybe I was. But today, we weren't teacher and student. We were equals. I folded my hands and said, "Let's talk." Ryan didn't waste a second. He pulled a manila folder from his bag and slid it across the table. The irony stung. Just 2 days ago, my wife had done the same thing, with veiled threats hidden in every line. But this folder buzzed with something different. Opportunity. Senior Director of Strategic Growth, Ryan said. 180 base. 35% bonus. Full benefits. Signing bonus that'll wipe out any trace of special consultant from your memory. He leaned in, voice lower. Fast track to VP. 7 months tops. Sooner, if even half your old clients follow you. I blinked. That's generous. "No," he said, "that's overdue." I opened the folder. Clean printouts. Salary breakdown. Onboarding forms. But what jumped out wasn't what was inside. It was what wasn't. "No non-compete," I said aloud. Ryan nodded. "We don't need it. You're not just a name on a LinkedIn profile. You're the reason deals close. People trust you, and trust doesn't expire." I sipped my coffee, let the weight of it all settle. "My contract now," I said, "with Silver. Tessa had the non-compete pulled last year. Said it would give me more flexibility." He raised an eyebrow. "You serious?" I pulled out my phone, scrolled to the PDF, turned it toward him. Page 11. No non-compete. No client poach clause. No IP lock. Ryan let out a low whistle. "She really thought you'd never leave." "She was wrong." He smirked, tapping the table. "They're still gonna try to smear you." I nodded. "Let them." I leaned in, steady now. I didn't marry my way into those contracts. I earned them. Every call, every deal, every name in that Rolodex. I bled for it. And I won't lift a finger to take a single one away. "You won't have to," Ryan said. "They'll come to you. They'll call you. They'll ask where you've gone. Not because you beg them to, but because they want to follow," Ryan said. The waitress dropped off our plates, and the scent of toast and eggs hit me all at once. I hadn't realized I was starving until that moment. Ryan took a bite, nodded toward the folder between us. "So, you win." I didn't answer immediately. My hand reached for the pen he'd placed beside the offer. I turned it slowly, feeling the weight. Not from the metal, from what it meant. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't pride. It was about finally choosing myself. After years in Tessa's shadow, after being used as a pawn in her climb, I had found my edge again. The light was still there, and I was stepping back into it. I signed. Ryan raised his mug. "To new beginnings." To freedom, I replied. We ate in silence after that, the kind of silence that only exists between people who understand what just happened without needing to say it. When I left the diner, the sky had shifted, those pale orange streaks just starting to crawl across the horizon. I slid into my car, folder in hand, and just sat there. Not to second guess, not to stall, but because, for the first time in years, I felt weightless. The pressure in my chest? Gone. When I got home, the house was still. Tessa's car was already gone. Some early meeting, I assumed. She hadn't asked where I went last night. Didn't care if I came home at all. I went to my office, closed the door behind me, and opened the employee handbook I helped write years ago. Every policy, every clause, every protocol, still there. But none of it mattered anymore. None of it applied to me. I checked my own contract one last time, scanned for what I already knew. No non-compete. No restrictions. No limitations. Tessa had removed all of that, thinking it gave me flexibility. What she really meant was, she thought I wouldn't leave. She'd unhooked the leash, assuming I'd still sit. Her mistake. That night, I wrote my resignation letter. No drama. No bitterness. Just precision. Just facts. The next day, I would walk into her office wearing the same suit I wore when we first pitched silver to our angel investors. Black. Clean. Controlled. But this time, I wouldn't be looking for her approval. I'd be the one delivering the final word. I chose that suit deliberately. It had been buried in my closet for years, but I couldn't bring myself to let it go. Back then, Tessa used to hold my hand under the table during big pitches. 2 squeezes when she got nervous. Now, she couldn't even meet my eyes at dinner. The irony wasn't lost on me. I adjusted my cuffs, took a long breath, and stepped outside. The drive was silent. No music. Nothing felt right. So I let the quiet sit with me. I passed the same coffee shop where we used to share bagels. She always took the half with extra sesame seeds. Now she left before sunrise, barely said goodbye. Somewhere between chasing titles and chasing power, we lost us. At the building, I nodded at reception and rode the elevator to the top floor. My hands were steady. My heartbeat calm. It felt like walking into a funeral I'd already attended. There she was behind the glass. Back straight. Eyes locked on a document like it had insulted her. I knocked once. She looked up, startled. Aaron, she said. Flat. Measured. I thought you were taking the day. I'm here to decide. I stepped inside and closed the door. She didn't stand. Just motioned toward the seat. Go ahead. I placed the resignation letter on her desk. No build-up. No speech. Just truth, in black and white. She didn't reach for it. She just stared. Then leaned back, arms crossed. You're making a mistake. No, I said. I'm making a choice. Something flickered in her eyes. Maybe surprise. Maybe irritation. She wasn't used to me doing this, holding ground. You're walking away from 14 years, she said. I nodded. 15 years where I built millions in revenue. Where I stayed loyal at the expense of time with my son. My peace. Her voice sharpened. You won't find another role like this. Not with your level. Not in this market. Not with that compensation. I smiled. Just a little. Already did. She blinked. Just once. But it was enough. Where? Comdirect. And that was it. Her spine stiffened. Her fingers curled around the desk like she needed to grip the floor beneath her. She said the name again, softer. Comdirect. They offered what I'm worth. What I should have been worth here. Her voice dipped low. You know we'll sell. I reached into my folder and laid the offer beside the resignation. No non-compete. No IP conflicts. No client poaching. You forgot to protect the one person you assumed would never leave. The air changed. She flipped through the papers, her mouth tightening as she read. Her silence said more than any argument could. This was the same woman who used to whisper, "We make a great team." Now she was calculating how she lost everything we built at once. I removed the clause so you could grow, she said quietly. No, I replied. You removed it because you didn't think I'd use it. Her jaw clenched. She didn't deny it. I was loyal. To a fault, I continued. I turned down better offers. Sat through meetings where I didn't exist. Took the back seat so you could shine. I never wanted the spotlight. But when you humiliated me in front of the team, our team, you made one thing clear. I don't belong here anymore. And I'm done pretending I do. She finally stood, like height might bring back control. This will hurt our reputation. No, I said calmly. It'll hurt yours. For a little while. We stood in that room, Two people who once built something from nothing, now reduced to silence. Not anger, just absence. The space between us had never felt wider. The room felt colder than I remembered. Less alive. I built this company, she whispered. So did I said. And now I'm building something else. The words landed like a closing door. Her lips parted, like she had one last thing to say. But she didn't. Because she knew. It was already over. I turned to leave. Aaron, she called out, just as my hand wrapped around the door. I paused, fingers resting on the knob. Her voice, it didn't sound sharp this time. No steel. No edge. Just something softer. Something almost human. Why now? She asked. I turned slightly, just enough to see her. The same woman who once danced barefoot in our living room, who used to whisper her dreams into the hollow of my neck like secrets meant only for us. Because yesterday, I said, I realized I've spent too long being loyal to someone who stopped being loyal to me. Then I opened the door and walked out. By the time I reached my office, the whispers had already started to spread. Tyler from legal looked up as I passed, his expression unreadable. Natalie from finance stood near the coffee machine, eyes red, clutching her cup too tightly. I gave her a quiet nod. She gave me a small, broken smile, then mouthed, "Thank you." I packed in silence. A few folders. A crayon drawing Noah made. A rocket ship in wild colors. My coffee mug that read, "Do the work." I left the photo of Tessa and me from last year's gala in the drawer. Some memories weren't worth carrying. Then came the email. From HR. "We'll coordinate your exit documents. Please wait for security to escort you, per protocol." Security. After everything. After the years. The hours. The revenue. That was how they chose to end it. Cold. Impersonal. Like a threat wrapped in policy. But I didn't flinch. I didn't need drama. I didn't want it. The security guard arrived within minutes. Polite. Almost apologetic. "Just protocol, Mr. Caldwell," he said, voice low. I nodded. Of course. As we walked the hallway, I felt the weight of 100 eyes pretending not to stare. Monitors flickered with fake spreadsheets. Keyboards clicked just enough to sound busy. No one said a word. But everyone watched. Then I stepped through Silver's glass doors for the last time. No announcement. No applause. No ceremony. Just the hush of shoes on tile. And a breeze behind me as the door sealed itself shut. I didn't look back. Not once. The air outside felt different. Not just cool, but clean. Like I just walked out of a burning building and survived. I stood on the steps a little longer than I needed to, the cardboard box in one arm, my resignation confirmation in the other. 15 years. And I felt light. I expected regret. Maybe nostalgia. But all I felt was clarity. Earlier that morning, Tyler from legal had sent a Slack message. "Want a quiet exit strategy?" I typed back. "No. Let them see me leave." I wasn't going to sneak out like a thief. I wanted them to feel it. Natalie from finance caught me by the elevators. She didn't say much. Just hugged me tightly and whispered. She didn't have to do it like that. She meant Tessa. They all did. They'd seen the way she wielded power, sharp, performative, controlling. Not leadership. Territory. And now that I was gone, they'd watch her more closely than ever. Waiting for the next one. The guard didn't say much. But when we got to the elevator, he pressed the button and quietly said, "Step back." I glanced at him. "Draw the short straw today?" He cracked a half smile. "You're not the first exec I've walked out, Mr. Caldwell. But you're the first one who left with his head held high." I didn't realize how much I needed to hear that. When we stepped out into the lobby, everything slowed. Receptionist froze mid-sentence. Interns faked reading emails they hadn't opened. I walked across the marble floor I used to mop myself, back when we couldn't afford a janitor. Back when Tessa and I shared a single desk and a shared dream. Now she had a corner office. And I had something she could never reclaim: my name. My worth. The trust of every client I'd built. One honest conversation at a time. I exited into the afternoon light, placed the box in the passenger seat of my car, and sat there. Engine off. Phone silent. Then, right on cue, it started. First. Sonia Adair, Telerik Solutions. "Hey Aaron, just heard. Where are you headed?" Then. Ethan Blake, Graywell International. "Tell me you're staying in the game. Let's talk." And finally. Denise Harrington, the same client who once said she'd never work with anyone but Silver. "If you're leaving, I'm rethinking our deal. Let's connect." I hadn't made a pitch. Hadn't sent a signal. But here they were. Calling. Texting. Asking. Because it was never about the company. It was about me. They trusted my voice, my instincts, my commitment to knowing their business like it was my own. Tessa never understood that. She thought loyalty came with a signature, with terms and conditions. But loyalty? Loyalty is earned. I replied to each one simply, "We'll talk Monday. I'll have something to share." Then I flipped open a fresh notebook, wrote 3 words at the top. Caught. Next. Day 1. That evening, I got home before Noah. He had soccer practice. Tessa had offered to pick him up, probably trying to manage the optics, keep up the illusion of a united front. I sat at the kitchen table, the box beside me. I pulled out a photo one I hadn't seen in years. Me and Noah in the park. He had a blue popsicle, mouth stained, hand in mine. I had forgotten this picture. Tessa had taken it. I remember the way she smiled at us, real, effortless, like she believed in us back then. I wondered where that woman had gone. The garage door creaked open. I heard Noah's cleats hit the ground before the door even swung in. He burst in, breathless. "Dad, did you see my goal?" "Not yet," I said, standing. "But you can show me now." His eyes lit up. "You're never home this early." "I will be now." He ran off to get the ball. And then Tessa stepped through the door. She looked tired, not just physically, worn down in that way ambition quietly drains people. Her gaze fell to the box on the table. "So it's done," she said. "It is." She nodded once. "They'll come after you." I met her eyes. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. No clients were solicited. No documents taken. "You built this company on rules," I said, my voice steady. "I followed every single one." She leaned back against the kitchen counter, letting out a sigh. "I didn't think you'd actually go through with it." "I know." There was a silence between us, deep and long, filled only by the soft thump of Noah kicking the soccer ball against the living room wall and laughing as it bounced back toward him. "I never meant to hurt you," she said quietly. I met her eyes. "You didn't need to mean it. You just had to stop seeing me." And that was it. The moment it landed for both of us. This wasn't about a public humiliation or one cold policy decision. It had started much earlier in the small decisions. The way she overlooked me, diminished me, the absence of kindness when power entered the room. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said, calm and even. She nodded once and moved past me into the living room. I didn't follow. That night, after Noah was asleep, I emailed Ryan. All 4 clients reached out. Not because I asked. Because they saw what you saw. His reply came 5 minutes later. "Then we begin." And we did. Monday morning hit like a shot from a starting pistol. No time for nerves. No time to dwell. I sat at my new desk, modern, minimal, clean. A fresh notepad, a full mug of black coffee, and a kind of focused energy I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't easing into coordinate systems. I was leading. Ryan had been clear from the start. "We're not hiring you to blend in. We're building a new lane for you." That lane began at 8:03 a.m. First email. Subject, checking in. "Aaron, just heard the news. If you're open to a conversation, I'd love to catch up. Q3's opening up, and I've always valued your take. Lila Preston, Telleric Solutions." Sonia wasn't warm. She wasn't casual. She didn't make contact unless it mattered. So for her to be first? That wasn't a greeting. That was a signal. By 8:17 a.m., 2 more messages hit. Ethan Blake from Graywell. Claire Monroe from Enduratech. None of them asked directly if I was soliciting clients. They were too seasoned for that. The messages were subtle. "Where are you landing? We may need a new approach. Let me know where you are." Every word wrapped in polite formality. Every sentence humming with intention. And I hadn't made a single call. That was what Tessa never understood. You don't build real relationships with discounts and LinkedIn articles. You build them in silence. By answering the 3 a.m. call. By walking a client through integration issues after the lights go off. By remembering that a CEO's daughter plays violin and always gets nervous before recitals. Trust isn't flashy. It's quiet. And it moves fast when you're gone. As word spread, trust did what it was always built to do. Follow me. But I didn't reply right away. I spent the morning reviewing Cortex's portfolio, looking for friction, gaps, points where Silver's bulk had slowed their agility. They weren't hard to find. Silver had grown bloated. Layers of middle management and processes that killed momentum. I knew because I helped build them. But now, I was on the other side. Cortex was lean, focused, hungry. At 12:20 a.m., Ryan walked into my office with that grin he wore when a storm was coming. "Let me guess," he said. "They're calling." They're circling, I replied, tapping my inbox. They'll call by Friday, he said, pulling up a chair. They'll call today, I said. He laughed. Sonia's on a panel with me next week. Asked if we could grab coffee beforehand. She's not a coffee person, Aaron. I nodded. I wasn't surprised. This wasn't ego. This was gravity. Silver never owned those accounts. They owned access. What I had. That couldn't be bought back. Ryan slid a paper across the desk. Key accounts we want to target. Most of them are clients you touched, even if indirectly. Take a look. I scanned the list. Graywell. Jacob Lindstrom. 3 others I had helped onboard in the early days. When we were using folding tables. When silver was still a dream on a whiteboard. I remembered every win. And I remembered never being invited to the podium when the deals closed. How aggressive are we being? I asked. You tell me, Ryan said. We're not chasing. We're standing still. If they come to us, we're ready. No emails. No calls, I confirmed. Exactly. Just let the magnet do its thing. And it was already pulling. At 12:11 p.m., my phone lit up. Denise Harrington. The same Denise who once told me she didn't switch vendors. Who once asked Tessa to remove me from a Zoom call because executives shouldn't linger. I answered. Denise, I said. Aaron, she replied. Her voice was cool, but I could hear the shift. You landed? I have coordinates. Yes. A beat of silence. Good, she said. I've been waiting for a reason. A reason. That's what I had become. A reason to reconsider. We talked for 6 minutes. She asked about Cortex's roadmap. Ethics. Infrastructure. I answered, clean and direct. When the call ended, I didn't push. Didn't follow up. I didn't have to. At 2:31 p.m., Ethan Blake followed. By 4:32, I had 6 meetings scheduled. All requested. None initiated. I leaned back, watching the soft amber of late sunlight touch the skyline. My office was quiet. Steady. No tension. No games. Just space. Later, when Tessa arrived to pick up Noah, she paused in the doorway. You're home early, she said. I work somewhere that values balance. I replied, not looking up from Noah's latest drawing on the fridge. She didn't say anything. Noah turned as they stepped outside. Can we hang out again Wednesday? Count on it, I said. I closed the door and stood still. The house was quiet. The evening light, soft, calm. I used to think that victory meant holding your position. Waiting. Being recognized. But real victory? It's when people remember you after you've left the room. And they were remembering now. That night, Noah was asleep. I had just closed out a batch of emails, small ripples in a much larger wave. The numbers were shifting. Fast. Cortex's growth metrics were starting to mirror Silver's loss curve. And Ryan? He was starting to show something new in his eyes. Not just excitement. Hunger. Real hunger. The kind that comes after years of restraint. I just set my phone down when it lit up. Unknown number. The caller ID flashed a local number. I stared at it for a second before answering. Ethan Caldwell, I said. There was a pause. Then, Aaron, it's Mitchell Crane, CEO of Silver Systems. Without meaning to, I stood up. My hand found the edge of the kitchen island and stayed there. I hadn't heard his voice in months. Even when I still worked under his umbrella, Mitchell was a ghost. One of those once-a-quarter CEOs, appearing only for headlines or emergencies. Apparently, this was both. Evening, Mitchell, I said, keeping my tone level. Didn't expect your call. I'd like to speak, man to man. He began, voice carefully composed. Every syllable sounded like it had been pre-approved by legal. I could almost picture the compliance team sitting silently beside him, nodding. All right, I replied, walking toward the living room window, phone pressed to my ear. This situation, with your departure, it's escalating faster than we anticipated. I didn't escalate anything. That's not what I meant, he said, clearing his throat. You've built strong relationships, and we recognize that. But the client movement we're seeing, it's not just numbers. It's trust. Trust, I repeated. You let your head of people destroy mine publicly. On company time. He was quiet. Then continued, slower now. We'd like to make things right. New title, senior partner. Equity. Full reinstatement. We can correct what happened. I almost laughed. Not out of pride. Out of disbelief. This was the same man who once told a boardroom that I was foundational, but replaceable. Now he wanted to reverse course because he'd finally realized the difference between seen and essential. You're too late, I said simply. Think about your family, he added, his voice softer now. I turned toward the hallway. Noah's nightlight glowed under the crack in his door. I said. I thought about my son asking why his mom yelled at me in front of everyone. I thought about all the mornings I left before sunrise and the nights I came home long after he was asleep. I thought about the day he stopped drawing me in his family pictures because I was always at work. I gave everything to Silver, I said. I built departments from scratch, held clients when your systems failed, closed contracts that paid for Tessa's entire restructuring. And when I needed dignity, just dignity, you gave me silence. Until the revenue dipped. That's not fair, he murmured. No, I said, sharper now. What wasn't fair was you only caring when the money left, not when your people did. There was a pause, longer this time. Is there anything we can say to make this right? I looked out the window. The street was quiet. Streetlights flickering across the pavement. I thought about the calm I felt each day walking into Cortex. The way Ryan asked for my opinion, not as a formality, but as a habit. The white space on my calendar labeled Noah. I thought about the clients, 7 already transitioning, more reviewing proposals. A team that saw me as a mentor, not a leftover. And Tessa? She still hadn't reached out. Not to explain. Not to argue. Nothing. You can't make it right, I said. Because you let it go too far. And the worst part? You still don't even understand what you let her do. I took a breath. You didn't just lose a name. You lost the one person who never needed a spotlight, but held your brand together when everything else was cracking. Silence. But it was heavy now. I see, he finally said. No, Mitchell, I replied. That's the problem. You never did. I hung up. I stood there for a while. The quiet around me wasn't empty, it was full of finality. I wasn't angry. That part had burned off weeks ago. This was something cleaner. Closure. Later that night, I stepped into Noah's room. He was half asleep, limbs tangled in blankets, mouth slightly open. I sat on the edge of his bed and ran a hand gently through his hair. You won't have to ask me to be home anymore, I whispered. I'm already here. The next morning, I opened my laptop and typed one final message to Ryan. Subject, for commitment. Mitchell called. He offered everything. I turned it down. Let's move forward. Ryan replied 2 minutes later. Then it's time to grow this thing. Full speed. And we did. 2 months later, the skyline shimmered outside my new office. Late morning sun bounced off the glass of nearby towers. I just finished a call with Graywell, our third successful transition in 6 weeks. My assistant tapped lightly on the glass. Aaron, there's a visitor. No appointment, but she says you'll want to see her. I didn't have to ask. I stood, adjusted my shirt cuffs, and stepped out. There she was. Tessa. She looked smaller. Not physically, but something in her presence was dimmed. The steel edges she used to wear like armor, duller now. The tilt of her chin, once defiant, now weighed down with restraint. Her blazer was immaculate, her heel sharp, but the way she clutched her purse tight against her torso that told the truth. She wasn't sure how this was going to go. She didn't smile. Neither did I. Aaron, she said. Tessa, I was hoping we could speak. Privately. I nodded once and led her to my office. The door clicked behind us, sealing in everything we hadn't said in months. She glanced around the room, sleek, clean lines, warm wood tones. Floor-to-ceiling windows flooded the space with soft daylight. Behind me, the Cortex logo gleamed against matte black. This is nice, she said, her voice attempting neutral. Very you. I sat behind my desk and motioned for her to take the seat across from me. She did. Her eyes landed on the nameplate. Ethan Caldwell, Vice President, Global Client Partnerships. Her jaw tightened. You've turned half the market against me, she said, skipping any preamble. No, I said, calm. You did that. I just left. I was doing my job. You were staging a performance. You didn't just cut my salary. You choreographed a takedown. You made sure everyone saw it. She shifted. I didn't think it would unravel like this. That's the thing, Tessa. You didn't think. You just assumed I'd take it. Like always. Quietly. With grace. While you chased exposure, I built the bones of that company. I never took credit for your work, she said. No. But you never shared it, either. She looked down at her hands. Her fingers trembled, just slightly. Gathering herself. You were always consistent, she said softly. Predictable. And I needed that. Until I didn't. Silence stretched between us. Then her eyes met mine, less guarded now, the edge softened. Barely. I came because I wanted to understand, she said. Why you let it all go. Us. The company. Everything. I leaned forward, resting my arms on the desk. I didn't let anything go, Tessa, I said quietly. I just stopped holding on to things that were already breaking me. She blinked. I fought for us, I continued. I showed up for the company. For every meeting. Every contract. Every late night I covered while you chased image. Somewhere along the way, I stopped being your partner. I became background. Convenient. Replaceable. I was under pressure, she murmured. We all were. But pressure doesn't create character, it reveals it. And yours came out cold. Her gaze shifted toward the window. Do you love what you're doing now? She asked. I do, I answered without hesitation. She nodded slowly, like she already knew. And Noah. He sees me now, I said. I'm home. I coach his team. He puts me in his drawings again. That hit her. Harder than anything else I'd said. You know what he asked me last week? I added. He said, why didn't Mom ever clap when you came on stage at Career Day? I didn't even know he noticed. Her mouth parted slightly, then closed again. No argument. No excuse. You're right, she whispered. Somewhere between my ambition and my control, I stopped seeing you. I assumed you'd never leave. And you told yourself that made you strong. It made me blind. She stood. Well, you've made your point. I stood too. I didn't ask you here. I know, she said. But I had to see it for myself. What you became when you stopped standing in my shadow. We locked eyes. No venom. No bitterness. Just the quiet understanding of two people who had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. You were always meant for more, she said. I took a step back. You just didn't want me to have it. She inhaled shakily, then turned for the door. Goodbye, Aaron. Goodbye, Tessa. The door clicked shut behind her. I sat again. The silence that followed didn't feel empty. It didn't ache. It felt earned. It felt right. Outside, the city pulsed with motion. Clients were waiting. Projects underway. The future wide open. She had walked in hoping I might look back. But I was already facing forward. 1 year later. 12 months since I walked out of Silver Systems with nothing but a box, my dignity, and the clarity of a man who'd had enough. Now I sat at the head of a walnut conference table in Cortex's downtown headquarters, the morning sun reflecting off the glass towers beyond my window. I hadn't looked back once. Not from defiance. From peace. Ryan slid a folder across the table. Final Q2 numbers, he said. We're up 27% over last year. That includes the Telerik account, Graywell, Lindstrom, and Enduratech. I flipped the folder open. Every name used to belong to Silver. Every deal I had either brought in, rebuilt, or salvaged when others fumbled. And I hadn't poached a single one. I hadn't needed to. Trust has gravity. It moves when the masks fall off. It remembers who showed up when no one else did. Natalie now ran our analytics division. Tyler led compliance. Both had followed me here, not in rebellion, but in belief. They'd seen what I endured, what Tessa had done. And when the door opened to something better, something built on empathy and strength, they didn't hesitate. Cortex hadn't just gained clients. It gained a soul. I closed the folder. No press. No announcements, I said. Let the numbers speak. Ryan smirked. Are you ever going to enjoy this? I am, I said. I just don't need to shout about it. That evening, I left the office before sunset. My car was already warmed and waiting, another quiet gesture from an assistant I once doubted I needed. I learned something this past year. Freedom doesn't always come from revenge. Sometimes it shows up in routines, in walking into a place where you're respected, in leaving early enough to make it home for dinner. Noah was at the kitchen table, soccer cleats tossed beside a granola wrapper, peanut butter smeared on his grin. Coach Caldwell, he declared. We've got practice tomorrow. Wouldn't miss it, I said, ruffling his hair. He was taller now, steadier, happier. And for the first time since the divorce papers were quietly signed 6 months back, I saw something in him I hadn't seen in a long time. Peace. He ran out to the yard with his ball, and I stepped onto the porch. My phone buzzed. Silver Systems stock down 17%. HR undergoing restructuring. A photo showed Mitchell at a press conference, Ty Askew, and beside him, an empty chair. Tessa had stepped down months ago, citing personal growth. Translation, she'd been nudged out. The industry wasn't blind. When 4 major clients walked after I left, it raised alarms. When 2 of her own people followed me, it raised questions. When news spread about how she publicly demoted her husband, it raised headlines. But I didn't comment. I didn't gloat. I didn't post cryptic updates. I just kept building. Because real payback isn't loud. It's steady. It's being so busy building what matters that you don't have time to tear down what doesn't. Dinner was simple: grilled chicken, carrots, salad. Noah picked at the veggies. We laughed about something his coach had said. Later, when he went to bed, I sat by the window with a glass of wine and the quiet hum of contentment settling around me. I thought about Tessa, about who we were, what we tried to build, and how she had weaponized the very thing we created. But I also thought about what came after. The sunrise through Cortex's glass. Natalie tearing up at our retreat, saying, "It feels human again." Ryan and I strategizing with laughter and purpose. Clients who wrote, "We trust you to lead this." Tessa's voice was gone now, her silence louder than any apology. But her absence didn't sting. It felt like relief, because I didn't need her to fall for me to rise. I didn't need silver to collapse to prove I had been the foundation all along. I just needed to walk away and remember who I was before I shrank to fit her spotlight. I took a final sip of wine and looked out at the stars. Then I opened my phone, tapped out a new note. Reminder to self. Leadership isn't loud. Dignity doesn't beg. Loyalty, when abused, becomes clarity. Trust follows the person, not the brand. The best payback is peace. I locked my phone, set it down, turned off the lights. Tomorrow would come, and I was ready.